We're in Greece. No one shows up for a loser's party, my aunt texted. My brother added, "You're a joke. We used your $30,000 vacation fund, haha." I stood alone in the private hall I had booked for my graduation party. I whispered, "Then you'll love what comes next." That night, I froze his $84,000 business loan, blocked every joint account, and revoked access to all cards. I stood alone in the lavish private hall, staring at the elegantly decorated tables, each one perfectly set with fine china, crystal glasses, and satin napkins folded like tiny swans. The chandelier above me sparkled brightly, casting its glow across the empty room that was meant to celebrate my graduation. My heart pounded, not from excitement, but from humiliation. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning and the echo of my own shallow breathing. The guest list had been sent out months ago. My family promised to come, to support me, to finally acknowledge the years of hard work I had poured into my degree while they basked in their vacations, debt-free lives, and entitled expectations. But tonight, not a single person showed up. And then my phone buzzed. A text from my aunt lit up the screen. "We're in Greece. No one shows up for a loser's party." Before I could even react, another message arrived, this time from my brother, Jason. "You're a joke. We used your $30,000 vacation fund, haha." I swallowed hard, my fingers trembling as I stared at his message. My $30,000, money I had saved for years, cutting corners, sacrificing vacations, skipping birthdays for myself, and driving a beat-up car, all gone. Used for their Greek escapade while I stood abandoned on one of the most important nights of my life. I whispered into the emptiness of the hall, my voice steady but cold. "Then you'll love what comes next." My fingers moved swiftly across my phone screen. Within minutes, I logged into our joint family business accounts. Jason's smug laughter echoed in my mind as I froze his $84,000 business loan. My pulse slowed, calm washing over me as I revoked their access to every shared account. No more joint credit cards. No more emergency transfers. No more free rides. I wasn't their safety net anymore. Tonight was the last time they'd treat me like a fool. The thing is, this didn't start last night. It didn't start with my brother stealing my vacation fund or my aunt mocking me from Greece. No, they had been building to this for years. I was the responsible one. Always. When Dad's business collapsed 5 years ago, who bailed them out? Me. When my brother Jason needed time to build his startup, who covered his rent, car payments, and even his groceries? Me. When my aunt lost half her savings in some MLM scam she swore was legitimate, guess who wired her $15,000 to keep the family afloat? Me. I worked overtime, took second jobs, lived in a tiny studio apartment while Jason moved into a suburban house he couldn't afford. My parents called him the ambitious one. I was the dependable one. Translation? The wallet. Your family. Family helps each other, Mom would say every time they called. You're single, you don't have kids, it's easier for you, my father would add. Jason, always the boldest, never even bothered to hide his entitlement. You're doing fine, he'd shrug, and I'm building something that'll help us all one day. Help us all. He meant help him. Help his bottomless appetite for luxury. The new SUV he leased. The beachfront vacations with his wife. The private school for his 2 spoiled children. All while he maxed out credit cards and funneled more debt into his failing business. I should have seen it coming years ago, but every time I tried to draw a line, they guilt me back in. Like that night 2 years ago when I told Jason I couldn't cover his payroll gap. He sat across from me at the bar, sipping his whiskey like nothing was wrong. "Come on, man," he said, flashing that smug grin. "You know how hard it is for small businesses these days. It's only 20 grand. You've got savings. If I go under, the whole family suffers." I stared at him. "You have employees. You have investors. Why am I the backup plan?" His smile didn't fade. "Because you're my brother." And like a fool, I wired him the money. It never stopped. When Mom called crying that they couldn't afford repairs on the house, $12,000. When my aunt needed dental surgery, $8,500. When Jason's wife accidentally overdrew their account 3 months in a row, I covered every overdraft fee. They always found a reason. They always had an emergency. And I always paid. Because family. But they never saw me. Not really. I was the silent pillar they leaned on, but never thanked. The ghost that funded their lifestyle. My sacrifices were never sacrifices, just his duty. I remember one family dinner that still burns in my memory like acid. It was last year, Thanksgiving. I had worked 16 straight days, barely slept, barely ate, just trying to make enough for the next wave of family emergencies. At dinner, as I quietly cut my turkey, Jason laughed loudly and said, "You know, Mark's actually lucky. No wife, no kids, no responsibilities. He can afford to play hero." The table erupted in laughter. My mother nodded in agreement. My father chuckled. I sat there frozen. They saw my entire existence as disposable. My hard work was a joke to them. And now? Now they'd stolen my $30,000 vacation fund. Money I'd saved for nearly a decade for the one trip I wanted to take before my next promotion, and used it for their Instagram-worthy Greek adventure. I could still see my aunt's text flashing in my mind like neon signs. No one shows up for a loser's party. And Jason, "You're a joke. We used your $30,000 vacation fund. Haha." They laughed while I stood alone on what was supposed to be my night. Their betrayal wasn't spontaneous. It was the culmination of years of contempt. They never loved me. They loved my wallet. But what none of them expected was that I finally had enough. That night, as I watched the empty ballroom, I felt something inside me snap. Not break. Not shatter. Snap. Cold. Precise. Focused. I whispered to myself, "Now let's see how you survive without your bank account." The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Jason was the first one. "Jason, bro, what is that? Why is the business account frozen? The payroll's due today." "Me, you'll figure it out. You're a genius, right?" Then my mother started. "Mom, Mark, what did you do?" "Jason said you locked the accounts. That's the family business. You're going to ruin everything." "Me, you mean the business I personally bailed out 3 times? The one funded by my savings?" "No, I'm just done feeding, and I'm done being used." The panic spread like wildfire. My father called. My aunt texted. Jason's wife even sent me voice messages filled with fake sobs and accusations. By noon, Jason showed up at my apartment, uninvited, unannounced, and completely unhinged. I opened the door to see him standing there, face red, fist clenched. "You think this is funny?" he barked, stepping inside like he owned the place. "You froze my company. I've got vendors screaming at me. Payroll's overdue. My employees are threatening to walk. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I shut the door calmly behind him. "Correction. I froze my money. The same money you used to build your unsustainable business model. The same money you stole from my vacation fund, Jason." He scoffed, pacing like a trapped animal. "It was a family emergency. We thought we'd pay it back once business picked up." "Pay it back?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean after the last 12 times you promised that? After the last $84,000 loan you conveniently forgot to repay? Or maybe after my $30,000 that you took for your little Greek Instagram fantasy?" "You're being dramatic," he hissed. "We needed that trip. Mom and Aunt Linda were falling apart. They needed a break. And besides, you weren't using the money." I stared at him, my voice cold as ice. "You're right, Jason. I wasn't using it. Because every dime I earned was going to cover your mortgage, your wife's shopping, your failed business, and your kid's private school. I sacrificed my life so you could pretend to be a successful entrepreneur." His voice grew louder, veins popping from his neck. "Don't you dare talk about my kids. You always act like you're some kind of martyr. Nobody forced you to help." I stepped forward, my voice rising for the first time. "No one forced me? Every phone call, every guilt trip, your family, you're the only one who can help. You forced me. You used me because you knew I wouldn't say no." The door burst open. My mother barged in, breathless, followed by Aunt Linda. "Mark," Mom shouted. "You need to stop this right now. You're tearing the family apart." I crossed my arms. "No, Mom. This family was broken long before today. I was just too blind to see it." Aunt Linda chimed in, her voice dripping with condescension. "We took that trip to Greece to relax. You wouldn't understand. You never had responsibilities like we did. You don't have a family." I laughed so hard I nearly doubled over. "You're right, Linda. I don't have a family. Because the people standing in front of me aren't one." Jason growled. "You're ruining everything. I built this business for all of us. You just had to keep your mouth shut and let me handle things." "No, Jason. You didn't build anything. You built a house of cards with my money. And now it's collapsing." My mother stepped forward, her voice trembling with desperation. "Mark, please. We can fix this. Just unlock the accounts. Your brother has children. How will they eat? How will they pay for school?" Her manipulation was as obvious as ever. I shook my head slowly. Those aren't my problems anymore. Tears welled up in her eyes, but there was no sincerity behind them, only panic that the gravy train had stopped. Jason snapped. You're acting selfishly, and I won't tolerate it anymore. He lunged toward me, but I held up my phone. Take one more step, and this video goes public, I said sharply. Jason froze. His face went pale. The room fell completely silent. What video? My mother whispered. I tapped the screen and let the first few seconds play security footage from his office, showing Jason forging my digital signature on multiple bank documents over the past 2 years. Aunt Linda gasped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. You thought I didn't know? I said, my voice low and dangerous. You thought you were clever enough to hide forged documents, falsified loan applications in my name? I knew. I always knew. But I wanted to see how far you'd go. And you went far enough. Jason staggered back, his face ashen. If you even think about laying a hand on me or contacting me again, I continued, this video goes straight to the police, the bank fraud department, and your investors. You'll lose everything, your business, your house, your fake reputation. My mother collapsed into a chair, sobbing now. Real tears this time. Not for me, for the empire crumbling around her. Mark, please, don't do this, she whimpered. I didn't do this, I whispered back. You did. Jason stood frozen, mouth quivering, looking like a trapped animal with nowhere to run. This ends today, I said calmly. I'm cutting you all off. No more bailouts. No more loans. No more rescues. You used me for long enough. Now you can face the world on your own. I turned, grabbed my jacket, and walked toward the door. And one last thing, I added, turning back for a final glance. You called me a loser. You mocked me for years. But the truth is, you were never laughing at me. You were terrified of what would happen when I finally stopped playing the fool. And then I walked out, slamming the door behind me. For the first time in years, I felt free. The silence after that confrontation was deafening. And for the first time in my life, I welcomed it. 3 days passed. Not a single call, text, or knock at my door. I half expected my phone to explode with desperate apologies, angry ultimatums, or pathetic guilt trips. But nothing came. It was almost peaceful. I slept better than I had in years. But while my apartment stayed calm, the rest of their world was burning to the ground. By the end of the week, I started hearing the fallout. My phone buzzed, not from my family, but from mutual acquaintances, business partners, and even a few of Jason's former employees. Hey man, is it true? Jason's business is collapsing. The bank froze all his corporate accounts after reviewing irregularities. His investors are threatening legal action. The dominoes fell fast. Once the bank launched its internal audit, they discovered forged documents, unauthorized withdrawals, and massive unpaid debts under Jason's company name. Without my financial backing and with evidence of fraud piling up, his so-called empire imploded in less than 10 days. Vendors pulled out. Clients sued. His main investor, who had already pumped in 6 figures, filed criminal charges for fraud and breach of contract. Jason's business license was suspended pending investigation. I heard that his office was emptied overnight. Employees stormed out after weeks of unpaid salaries. Several vendors filed liens against his property. He went from being the successful entrepreneur to toxic waste nobody wanted to touch. But that was just the beginning. Next came the house. The bank foreclosed on the luxury suburban mansion I'd indirectly helped him buy over the years. The SUV his wife loved so much was repossessed in broad daylight. The private school expelled their kids due to non-payment. They had nowhere to go. And that's when my mother finally cracked. She called me one afternoon. I let it ring 6 times. On the 7th call, I finally answered out of sheer curiosity. Her voice was brittle, almost broken. Mark, please talk to me. I stayed silent. It's all falling apart, she continued, her words frantic. The house, the cars. Jason might go to jail. The investors, they're suing. We're losing everything. I took a long breath and spoke with a cold clarity I never knew I possessed. You mean, you're losing everything you stole from me? That's not fair, she cried. We made mistakes, yes, but we're family. I let out a bitter laugh. You threw that word around so easily when I was your ATM. Now suddenly you remember what family means. Her voice cracked. Please, at least help your brother's children. They're innocent. Yes, I replied, my voice like a blade, and maybe you should have thought about that before dragging them into your lies. You all made choices. Now you live with them. I hung up. A few hours later, my aunt tried her luck. Mark, I always supported you. I cut her off instantly. You mocked me while sipping champagne in Greece. Save your fake sympathy for someone who cares. And with that, I blocked her. But the real explosion came next. Word spread fast. And not just within the family. Jason's scandal went public. The local business news caught wind of it. Headlines ran. Prominent entrepreneur accused of large-scale family fraud. His former investors gave interviews, eager to distance themselves. Reporters dug into court filings that exposed everything. The forged signatures, the frozen accounts, the stolen $30,000 vacation fund. Even social media lit up. His perfect Instagram life crumbled into a circus of public humiliation. The same people who once envied his lavish lifestyle now ridiculed him in comments. Thought you were balling? Guess not. Should have treated your brother better. You should have valued your brother more. Jason shut down every online account within days. And then came Kelly, Jason's wife. When everything collapsed, she did what she always did, ran. I heard from a coworker that she filed for divorce within 2 weeks. She blamed Jason for financial deception and claimed she had no idea about his shady dealings. Of course, she was lying. She'd spent the stolen money right alongside him. But now that the cash had dried up, she jumped ship to save herself. I almost felt bad for their kids. Almost. As for my parents, their retirement accounts were drained. They had poured everything into Jason's sinking ship, convinced he was saving the family. Their suburban home was put up for sale to cover legal expenses. My father stopped calling entirely. My mother's voicemail shifted from anger to begging to finally silence. And I lived. For the first time, I truly lived. I got promoted. Without the financial burden, I finally accepted the job offer I had postponed for years, a senior management role with a 6-figure salary. The money I used to funnel into their bottomless pit now funded my future. I bought my own condo. A beautiful, modern space overlooking the city skyline, bought entirely with my own clean money. No more roommates. No more suffocating debt. I traveled. I finally took that vacation, not to Greece, but to Japan. 10 days of freedom, culture, and peace. No guilt. No calls. No manipulation. I built real friendships. Without my toxic family draining me, I finally had the energy to form meaningful relationships. I met people who valued me not for what I could give, but for who I was. And then one night, as I stood on my balcony overlooking the city lights, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from someone unexpected, Jason's ex-wife. Kelly, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just wanted to say, you were right. About all of it. I'm sorry. And thank you. You did more for us than we ever deserved. I read it in silence. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I was free. Months passed. The silence from my family wasn't emptiness, it was freedom. Jason served time. Fraud charges left him bankrupt, unemployed, a felon. His empire was nothing but dust. The man who once called me a loser now delivered packages to survive. My parents lost everything: house, savings, reputation. The retirement they stole from me evaporated along with Jason's business. Aunt Linda? Bankrupt. Her scam fell apart like the fragile pyramid it was. And me? I lived. I climbed higher at work, accepted every promotion, traveled to places they only dreamed of. My condo overlooked the city skyline, bought with my own money, untouched by their greed. For the first time, I lived for myself. One evening, I received a final message from a distant cousin. You were right. They used you. You didn't deserve any of it. I smiled. Not for validation, but for the closure. I lifted my glass and whispered the truth that had been building for years. I was never the loser. I was the escape plan. And I escaped.